Hi, I'm David Thomas, one of the inventors of the Perkl-Light. And I'd like to tell you the story of how this little guy came to be available for all of us to use. I personally, in terms of my spiritual beliefs, I believe this was just basically given to me by Spirit. And once you hear the story of how this thing came to be, you may kind of believe that. It's either was given to me by Spirit, or it's a very bizarre set of twists and turns and coincidences that led to this very wonderful machine being available for us all to use. About 5 years ago, I found myself traveling in a big silver travel trailer that I was pulling with a 1969 Cadillac convertible. I had a rather rare moment in my life where I had money coming in and I didn't have to work, and I thought I would use this adventure as an opportunity to express some of my philosophies of technology and spirituality that I've been developing over the last 15 years. So I was traveling around in this big trailer, pulling it with this old convertible, and writing stories on the internet that would be a setting in which to express my philosophy. Now, one of the problems I faced was I was traveling by myself. I was kind of lonely, and it's like, okay, the girlfriend to travel with didn't manifest, and so I'm going, well, maybe like second best would be some kind of pet. Okay, the dog, the cat, I'm going, okay, it gets hot in the trailer, you know, there was no place to put the litter box. I mean, there were some logistical considerations there, and so the dog or the cat wasn't lining up. One day I was in the mall going to the movies, and they had these hermit crabs. And for some reason, I was just totally drawn to these little hermit crabs. And right there in the mall, I was picking them up and looking at them and playing with them. And right there in the mall, I completely read through this little book about how to take care of them. And needless to say, I walked back to the trailer with, you know, 3 hermit crabs and a little container in the books and all the paraphernalia and stuff. And took them back to the trailer, and I'm like, oh, I have a little friend to share my adventure with, you know. So the problem was they started dying. They weren't doing very well in the trailer because of the temperature extremes. It was just getting too cold for them at night, and maybe even too warm during the day. So, being kind of an inventive soul, I cobbled together a little heater. It had a tin can for a reflector and a little automotive light bulb, and a thermostat in the lid of their container. There were no heaters available commercially that would run off the 12-volt electricity available in the trailer, so I had to fabricate something. Well, the heater worked great, and the hermit crabs started doing a lot better once they had the heater, and for some reason I just became obsessed with this heater and kept making better and better versions of this heater until a couple of years later I'm still not even living in the trailer anymore, and I'm still working on this heater, and I have this very elaborate thing with a microcontroller in it, and it has this array of clear plastic fins that could keep an animal like a snake from bumping into the hot parts of the heater, and it would get brighter if it needed more heat, or dimmer if it needed less heat. It'd just be on steady. So it was a very neat mechanism. It was a very wonderful product. It's patent pending, and it's something that I'm looking forward to bringing to market one of these days. Now, a couple years ago, with this, I had the heater all made, and I all of a sudden found myself to be an out-of-work software engineer. I'm sure that many of you can relate to that. And I was scrambling to come up with a way of making a living. So I took the hermit crab heater and a few other little devices that I'd made and took them to a meeting of this inventors club and showed everybody all my stuff. And I said, hey, I'm going into business making devices for inventors. If anybody needs an electronic gadget made, get a hold of me, and I'll see if I can fix you up. Well, it turned out there was a guy in the meeting who was doing some very wonderful sculptures with light, and he needed a controller to mix the colors in his red, green, and blue LEDs, so that, for example, you could mix a certain proportion of the red and the green, and you'd get an orange or something like that. He didn't have a way of doing that. So he saw my heater with the light shining through the fins with a kind of a fiber optic effect, and he saw, that's exactly what I need, but can you do it with three colors instead of just one? So lo and behold, I made him a controller for his light sculptures. He really loved it. I made him a second one. I had so much fun playing with it that I thought, you know, I got to make one of these for myself. And so I made a little device, a little controller, and I decided I would put the lights inside of the box instead of the lights being on something across the room, and put a little transparent piece in so that it would all be a nice little self-contained unit that I could take to inventors meetings and show off so that I could get business for my prototyping service. Well, the interesting thing was that the little device that I made ended up looking a lot like this. And for the first couple of months that I had this, I had it in a mode kind of similar to the machine clearing, where it would change colors, and it was sitting on the shelf in my bedroom. And I kept looking at this thing going, you know, that thing seems highly underutilized. But I didn't really know why or what. You know, I just had that intuitive sense, like that this thing had a lot more potential than just a pretty little thing sitting there changing colors. So I started doing a little reading about color therapy. I'd heard of it many years ago, and I started poking around on the internet and discovered that the state of the art at that time in color therapy was, you know, 7 colors to map to the 7 chakras of the body. And I thought, well, if they can do all this wonderful stuff with 7 colors, we've got 16 million colors. Maybe there's something this can do that can't. So I brought this to a party one night, and I showed it to my friend Bertrand, who's a practitioner, a very gifted energy worker. And Bertrand basically picked up on the energy right away. And next thing you know, there was a line of about 10 people at this party, and Bertrand's energy balancing like their lung meridian, all this stuff, and everybody's all feeling better from the little treatments he was giving with this machine. And so at that point, the Perkl-Light was really born, and we spent about a year and a half refining it, getting it so that they all operate in a consistent way, and putting in all the machine, you know, all the pre-program modes and such, and basically going through all the steps that one needs to do to create a product. So anyway, I hope now you understand why I say this thing was given to me by Spirit, because if someone had hired me 2 years ago and said, David, I want you to make a device that can balance your energy field and your chakras and all the wonderful benefits that go along with that, I would have said, I don't know how to do that. But this thing came from my hands nonetheless. And so that's why, to me, in my own belief system, I see it as being given to me by Spirit. And also I think that stands as an example of how Spirit works through us in the world. Thank you.